everybody, I'm your host Elad, and today I'm reporting to you from New York City at the Extinction Rebellion rally. This is a rally to raise awareness for climate change. We have people laying in the street blocking traffic, and then many protesters beside them. Let's go talk to some people, see what's going on. So we're out here today for the Extinction Rebellion rally. I see you have a sign that says 3,000 to 5,000 people were killed by climate change. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you're out here and what you're trying to achieve?
Well, I'm here so the New York Times and the other media in the United States tell the truth about climate change.
And what is the truth about climate change?
The truth is that we only have 10 years until we hit 1.5 degrees Celsius.
And then is it like genocide at 1.5?
It'll be genocide definitely for countries of the global south, like Puerto Rico, that was hit by a hurricane about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. Do you think the hurricane was caused by climate change?
The hurricane was definitely caused by natural occurrences, but it was strengthened by climate change, though. Absolutely, because of warmer waters.
Yeah. So I know we're out here in front of the New York Times to try to encourage them to try to make change. Would you call them fake news? What do you want to see them do differently?
I wouldn't call them fake news, but I want them to, emphasize the climate crisis more and connect them to everyday crises that are happening right now, especially in the global south.
And is this changes you want to see made in the U.S. specifically? I know we're responsible for about 15% of global emissions.
I definitely want the change to be globally. Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, all corporations are a global monster.
Oh, so this is a corporation thing?
At least for me, it is. Absolutely. Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
That's about it.
Thank you so much for your time. We're outside of the New York Times over here. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you're out here?
So the problem with climate justice is that the issue is the economic system. Capitalism, by its very nature, does not involve ecological regeneration and its economic calculation. The New York Times reports on climate change, but it reports on it like any other issue. It compares just like any other issue, and when referring to business stories, does not refer that those capitalist enterprises have to face this truth one day. And so we need to realize, and the New York Times needs to report, like every other major news agency, that capitalism is in fact the problem, because it is divorced from ecological systems.
Do you think we need to completely overhaul our economic system right now to help prevent an economic complete disaster?
100%.
And how much time do we have until that economic disaster hits?
Economic disaster?
I mean, until the global warming disaster hits.
So we have 10 years to put into place an infrastructural change that will change over energy grids, transportation systems, and industries to make their production more ecologically.
So like in 10 years we should have no cars and things like that, no planes, all these gas burning things that put more CO2 in the...
Our demand is to be carbon or greenhouse gas net zero by 2025. Sure. That is the goal.
I know the United States contributes around 15% of the global emissions. Even if we do reach net zero, will that stop climate change from occurring?
We need to hold on to international treaties such as the Paris Accord, but we need to put binding teeth on those treaties. Those currently don't have organizational mechanisms which can enforce environmental policy. So if we get back, which we can, into the Paris Accord when Trump's out of office, we can actually make sure that state plans, which we are working on here in New York, can be made as radical as possible, can federally organize with other state institutions to do the same thing, and then can organize internationally to put that sort of a radical Green New Deal on the international platform.
I know that besides the United States, some of the other big contributors is...
My officers just need a little room to work. If you could move to the sidewalk and continue an interview on that side.
Capitalism is the problem. We need to end capitalism immediately.
Oh, man. All right. Thanks, guys. So we're out here for the Extinction Rebellion rally. I see that we're blocking traffic here. Can you tell me a little bit more why you guys are out here and what changes you want to see made?
We need the New York Times to treat this like a global emergency, like it is. Start calling it a crisis. Start calling it an emergency. It should be the front headline of every day's paper. Yeah. We're really going over a cliff here, and they know it.
Would you call them fake news?
Not at all. No. They're doing some of the best climate reporting that's happening, but it's in a silo. It's not the coverage that it should be given the emergency.
Yeah. I know the biggest policymaker that's the most vocal about this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with her Green New Deal. Are you guys supporters of the Green New Deal here?
Yes, absolutely. People are supportive of a federal Green New Deal solution that comprehensively addresses the crisis, which needs to happen immediately because the timeline is within 10 years, we're going to hit 1.5 degrees. Within 20
You think it's over in 10 years?
It's a continuum, right? So 1.5 degrees warming within 10 years, years, and 2 within 20 years. Between 1.5 and 2 degrees warming, there are 16 different tipping points. Ocean currents are going to change. Major dominoes start to happen. So this is the do or die moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the Green New Deal is extremely ambitious. Do you think if we accomplished everything in it, it would stop climate change?
I'd say don't get caught up on the Green New Deal resolution itself. It's only a part of the solution. It's an idea to get the conversation started. We're working on comprehensive legislation that will cover food and ag, transportation, energy, cities and buildings, all the pieces. So the resolution touched on that, but it was sort of too broad in some respects and too narrow in others.
I know some countries, poor countries like India that are rapidly industrializing now, use a ton of fossil fuels, but they do so at the cost of improving the lives of their citizens now. How can we convince those countries who are saving lives now using fossil fuels to stop using them?
Well, it's 150 degrees in India. People are dying in the streets.
Yeah.
So
but it only increased like one degree Celsius in the past, like 140 years. So it's not why.
No,
it's
in the last 5 years, they're having some of the highest records of all time in India. Heat waves. Heat waves are happening all over the place. Fires, droughts,
and that's a result of climate change.
Yes, a climate crisis of the climate crisis of global heating, not global warming. It's global heating because we are actively heating our own atmosphere.
Yeah. Do you think nuclear energy has any role here, either as a transition? Because I know you get more bang for your buck, and it's relatively cleaner than fossil fuels. And I don't know if renewable energies are completely feasible at this point. Do you think so? And what do you think about nuclear?
Renewable energies are completely feasible.
Yeah. But the batteries to store this energy, do you think
that's just minutes away? Minutes away once we put the effort into it. And there's some nuclear capacity that's necessary now, but you'll get a lot of disagreement about that within the environmental movement. So because it's relatively zero emissions in terms of greenhouse gases compared to fossil fuels. So and there's an existing nuclear that's going to be there. So it's part of the transition.
Yeah.
But it's the least of our worries.
To finish, was there anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, the oil, gas, and coal companies, the lobbyists, the Koch brothers that own our Congress. We need This is a climate crime against humanity. This is what we're calling a crime.
And that's why you guys are out here.
And that's why we're out here. We need to call the New York Times needs to help expose the political oil companies that are killing our planet.
Thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you. Thank you guys. Excuse me, guys. Any comment?
Or if you resist arrest, you may be charged with additional crimes.
You guys are out here with your climate change making machines. So we're out here in New York City today for the Extinction Rebellion rally. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you guys are out here and what you're trying to accomplish?
So right now we're out here to go and demand that the New York Times tells the truth. The media does not tell the truth about what's going on in the world. Oftentimes they report infrequently and inaccurately about the crisis that's going on right now.
So what is the truth about the crisis that's going on right now?
The crisis is happening now. A lot of the times, often the media will report climate change as a future event. It's happening now. In India, one of the 6 major cities is out of water. The Arctic is
Are they out of water because of climate change?
Yes.
Like, what's the link between them?
Well, because of droughts all over the world, reservoirs are drying up, and there just isn't enough resources for large populations where the infrastructure is not built. And in the global south, climate change is much, much worse than it is here already. And so the realities of the global south are so bad, and no reporting gets done on them. Oftentimes we don't hear about the cyclones or the droughts or the monsoons.
And those you're convinced those are all caused by climate change already?
We've
increased around 1 degree for the past 140 years. So that 1 degree is responsible for that.
Yeah, that 1 degree Celsius has already caused a huge shift in the way our climate functions.
How many lives do you think has been taken by climate change so far?
Repeat one more time.
How many lives do you think have been taken as a direct result of climate change so far? Ballpark.
Upwards of 5,000.
Last question. I know a lot of people talk about nuclear energy, and it's a little bit cleaner than fossil fuels and things like that. Does that have any place as maybe a transition or in your movement at all?
You know, for us, we're trying to phase out fossil fuel energy. There's many ways to do that. Nuclear energy has lots of problems, like solar energy does.
I know with the batteries and stuff, it's hard to store a lot of these renewable energies, but nuclear energy is 24/7, so...
Well, the nuclear waste that comes from that is highly toxic. It doesn't biodegrade for thousands of years. When nuclear reactors have problems or blow up, it pollutes. Fukushima is a perfect example of how nuclear
But aren't those like one-off,
No,
like
they're not. Chernobyl is a horrific event. The environment there is still recovering. It's not a practical method for having a clean and safe, sustainable future. future for all.
Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
The climate crisis is here, and we need to take action yesterday.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. So we're out here today for the Extinction Rebellion rally. Could you tell me a little bit more about your guys' movement and what you guys are trying to achieve?
Yeah, it is a regenerative cultural activism movement that's seeking to make the climate change crisis the number one issue, not only for people's hearts, but for our governments and our policies, and trying to make it a number one issue and hopefully prevent extinction, hence rebelling against that in the title, the name of the group.
So it does sound a little bit alarmist. How much time do you think we have left if we weren't to address these issues ASAP?
Honestly, I think it's like 11 years, I've heard.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said something like 12 years. So you think around there?
Probably, yeah. I'm not super,
And what would be the policy prescriptions to help stop this? Like, what should the U.S. and I know Extinction Rebellion has a couple of other countries involved too, but what changes do we need to see made?
I think it's going to be an extremely intricate process or policy. I think the main thing would be like caps on greenhouse gas emissions for companies and organizations, and also U.S. governmental agencies, and figuring out which of those things capped need to have the things those organizations are doing, like how can those change so as not to affect communities negatively and not create animosity to people who might get laid off or something. But major changes need to be made for the short term, for the long term changes, but probably greenhouse gas emission cuts and I don't know about killing, like removing cows or what. Like, I think the Green New Deal is a very good policy, but I think it needs to be fleshed out more. But it's a great first start.
Yeah. Let's say we accomplished everything in AOC's Green New Deal. Do you think that would halt climate change?
I don't know. There'd probably be residual effects without some sort of technological intervention to, put an abrupt end to it. So I think it would be a first step in halting the crisis level of the change that's occurring.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask, because the United States contributes around 15% of the global emissions. I know other bad culprits are also India and China. India says it uses a lot of these fossil fuels to help improve the quality of life for the people living there now. How could we help convince these other countries who we can't stop climate change without them changing too? How do we convince these other countries to hop on board?
Well, one, we need to understand the history that they have, because these are, especially India, are recently industrial economies. So one reason I think China and India, the argument can be made, they are rightfully feeling they don't have to contribute as much because they've only, especially in India, like I said, industrial countries for...
But how rightfully so if we only have around a decade left, and if they don't stop, then, Extinction Rebellion?
I think by fostering healthy dialogue between the leaders, especially leaders who've had their hearts change about this being a crisis rather than just like a interesting, talking point for the podium, but just like dialoguing, feeling with and trying to bargain with them somehow.
We're like in a trade war with China now. It's just like, how are we going to help negotiate? How are we going to work with these guys where, we're barely on the same page? Do you also think, I know nuclear energy is a lot cleaner than fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Do you think nuclear energy has any role in this, just real quickly?
Nuclear...
The transition to green energy?
I'm not familiar enough with it to give you a good answer, to be honest. Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention real quick?
Just consider it a crisis and your grandchildren's hearts are the future. I don't know. Just do a job and
Thank you so much.
Save the earth.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We're out here today for the Extinction Rebellion rally. I see you have a couple of these flags. You guys are trying to rally for climate change. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're out here and what changes you're trying to see made?
Absolutely. So a little bit more than climate change, we want to highlight the biodiversity crisis as well. This is more than a climate catastrophe awaiting. It's ecological catastrophe as well. What we're trying to do today is to get the media and the government to tell the truth about the crisis. We see this story fall to the wayside after a couple of days of the news cycle.
What is the scale of this crisis?
A scale we haven't seen before as a human species. Say there's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere today than it's ever been in human existence.
Yeah. Extinction Rebellion sounds kind of alarmist. How much time do you think we have left before we're seeing, irreversible damage and, catastrophes where hundreds of thousands of people die due to climate change?
I personally think the time we have left is a moot point. We have negative time. We need to be starting now to see the change we want to see in the world.
Yeah. I know Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal was very ambitious with changing a ton of things. Are you guys supporting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal?
I'll say we support any measure that moves the needle in the direction towards a greener future.
Yeah.
I'll say we might not agree on all the specific policies in any proposal, and we definitely do not advocate for any specific piece of legislation.
Yeah. Are there any specific policies, though, that could help make a big dent in this? I know there's a lot of cars, and so, like, off the top of your head, what are some significant ones?
Legislation that promotes public transportation over others, ethical forms of consumption, such as less disposable waste.
I know cars pollute a lot. Should we do anything to try to curb how many people are driving? And
yeah, we should be trying to increase the use of bike lanes, other forms of public transportation, make this a more walkable city for everyone.
yeah. Are those enough things on the macro level to help stop and curb climate change, though?
We need everyone involved. This is going to take a World War II type level mobilization to really get around this.
Yeah. Is it comparable to World War II? Like, I know millions and millions of people died in World War II. Like, has climate change killed anybody? Are these comparable things?
So, within the last 20 to 30 years, it's affected a lot of people not in the United States or in other Western nations.
Is it killing them?
Yes.
Okay. How many people have died due to climate change?
I do not.
Ballpark.
I do not know the exact number, but it's in the tens of thousands.
Okay.
Yeah, each year.
Absolutely. Due to what? Things like
Excessive heat, excessive floods, droughts, harming food security.
things like that. So starvation and stuff. All right. Just real quickly, because I know they're moving. Was there anything else you want to mention to finish up?
Join us out in the streets.
Thank you so much for your time, bro. I really appreciate it. Recording. Back up a little bit. So we're out here today in New York City. You guys are part of the Extinction Rebellion rally that's happening out here. You guys are trying to raise awareness for climate change. Can you tell me more about your goals and why we're sitting out here in the street?
Sure. We have an extensive list of demands that we are making upon all media, not the New York Times, not just the New York Times. The New York Times is the national paper of record, so they have authority, and we are targeting them today for that purpose. So we are asking for them to make climate chaos, climate crisis, a front page story every day.
Once we get that notoriety, what kind of changes do you want to see made? Like, I know a lot of things were mentioned in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal, but are there any specific initiatives you want to see pushed and changed in the U.S.?
Well, Extinction Rebellion does not make specific policy demands beyond we are demanding that the government tell the truth. We are demanding an acceleration of getting off of fossil fuels to have carbon zero by 2025. And in the U.S., we are also acknowledging and standing with the environmental justice communities and our indigenous peoples who take the brunt of climate crisis.
Is it a metaphor at all that we're sitting in the middle of the street blocking trucks and cars that use a lot of fossil fuels? Is that a part of it?
Well, disruption is something that needs to be done, unfortunately, for us to get attention. We are not stopping the traffic go because they can easily make a right. We are clearing the space for our activists today.
Absolutely. Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
I would ask people to go to xrr.nyc and get engaged in Extinction Rebellion because the planet can't wait. And if the planet dies, there is no plan B.
How many years do you think we have?
We need to act change now. We don't have any more time to enact change. We need to enact change now to try to stop the chaos that's coming.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Sorry, guys. Thank you. So we're out here for the Extinction Rally, right? And I see you're wearing the logo and the shirt over here. Can you tell me a little bit more about your guys' organization and what you guys are trying to achieve?
Sure. So we're a movement. We're trying to use civil disobedience to force our governments to take action on the climate crisis. We believe that without a powerful social movement, that nothing's going to change, especially not in time to prevent the disastrous effects of climate change.
Yeah. How much time do you think we have left before we see these like large-scale problems? You know, I know we had Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say something like 12 years not too long ago. So how much time do you think we got?
So this is not based on official science. It's just my interpretation. But well, I do know that the IPCC says we have 12 years or less to completely change our society. Otherwise, the effects of global warming will become unstoppable. They'll continue forever, even if humans stop their fossil fuel emissions. And if that happens, I think that in like 20 years is when we start to see stuff hit the fan because our food systems will start to collapse. We'll have hundreds of millions of climate refugees. Our governments won't be able to deal with the pressure, and things will just continue to get worse.
And we're predicting like bigger storms, like rising sea levels. Those are the culprits that will be killing people. Do you think climate change is killing people people now?
Certainly is. Yes, certainly is.
Like, how many people do you think climate change is killing?
I don't know the exact number because it's kind of a slow process. It's not like you get blown away by a tornado. It's like your house gets destroyed and then you go somewhere else and then you can't get a job and then you start starving and then you get into crime. It just kind of like builds up like that. I can say with certainty though that a lot of the migrants coming from Central America are being forced out of their homes by climate change.
Wait, why climate change? Aren't they just trying to escape violence and as I understand they were largely like economic migrants, but is that because of climate change? And then how so?
Yeah, so at the surface level, it's like economic stuff, political stuff, but when you go down a little bit deeper, a lot of these people are being forced out of their homes because the place that they had been farming for 40 years no longer produces crops. So then they're forced...
We're already feeling the effects.
Right, we're definitely already feeling the effects. And these people are forced from their farmlands into cities. It's too crowded. The government doesn't have as much tax revenue to like police. There's more corruption. There's more opportunity for strife. And then they're forced to leave because they don't have any other option.
Yeah.
Then they end up in the United States in a migrant camp. Yeah. And just, yeah, people are definitely getting fucked up already.
We were talking about those large-scale changes that we need to see made. What are some of those large changes that need to be made?
So in terms of like the technological standpoint, it's pretty straightforward, right? Renewable energy, electric cars.
Like I know in the Green New Deal, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was very ambitious with like no more cars. She didn't want like flying. She wanted to have like extensive railways, so on and so forth. She wanted to get to net zero within a decade, I think. Do you think these like goals are reachable?
I think that they are reachable. The main issue right now and the biggest change that we need to see is not a technological change. It's a political change. It's a change in the consciousness of the American people. Yeah. And that's what's preventing us from enacting these solutions. We know it needs to be done, but our political leaders aren't going to do it unless they feel like they have to because there's people in the streets.
Are you guys Green New Deal supporters in Extinction Rebellion?
So we don't explicitly endorse the Green New Deal. Our demand is actually to have net zero carbon by 2025, which is a little bit sooner than the Green New Deal.
Okay. And do you think that's a doable, an achievable goal?
We chose that goal because we think that it is the absolute fastest that it could possibly happen if we really went into overdrive in every possible way.
If achieved, would it stop global warming?
I think that it would, and it's...
Wait, does this include, I know you said it started out somewhere in Europe, so does this include other countries too, or is this just America? Just so I understand.
Yeah, so we started in the UK, we've spread to, I think, at least 40 countries. Okay. So the US, Canada, Mexico, a bunch of European countries. There's some countries in the global south that have started doing this as well.
Because I don't know the number of percent emissions that those countries contribute, but I know the US contributes around 15% of the world global emissions. If that went down to zero, we still have like the other 85%. I guess that would include some of the other countries you mentioned. China and India are also big culprits here. How can we convince those countries who use this energy to help, feed people and feed their livelihood there now? How do we convince these countries to change too?
So, again, just speaking for myself, but I feel like the United States can kind of set an example for the rest of the world. And I think that if the United States got its act together and decided that we were going to take climate change seriously and work at emergency speed to get to net zero, these other countries would see what we're doing and be like, okay, now it actually makes sense for us to do it as well.
You think of the United States as leaders in the world? Because that's what it sounds like, and that's a great thing. I mean, no, it sounds like you think like we should take lead, and I like that. But so do you think the United States is like a leader in that sense?
I think that we have an obligation to be a leader for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think that, the residual of like the last 70 years, we kind of are at the forefront of the international sphere. Whether that's right or wrong, probably wrong, but it is what it is, right? Other countries are going to follow our lead.
I want to ask you, this is going to be the last question. Do you think nuclear energy has any place in your guys' movement? I know it's more green relatively to fossil fuels, and it could be really efficient. It doesn't have the problem with like storing energy with batteries and stuff, because this stuff runs around the clock. Does nuclear energy have any place in your guys' movement as a transition or use in the end?
So, Extinction Rebellion as a group is not meant to be answering those sorts of questions. So, one of our demands is that we establish an alternative democratic body to oversee the transition to net zero. And basically, we are in the position where we know what needs to happen, we know what the goals need to be, and we want to create the political climate where those are possible to be achieved. And then once we get to that point, we will empower a new democratic body to actually make those hard decisions about yes, nuclear, no nuclear, how many solar panels. And that's kind of based in, on one hand, and we just want everybody to be on the same page. And once you start introducing those individual policy prescriptions, it divides people because they have different opinions. And the other thing is, we're just a bunch of random activists. Like, I don't know that much about nuclear power. I'm not in a position to answer the question, so we're kind of passing the buck to whoever actually puts in the solutions. And
you
we
guys
just
see an issue and you guys are trying to help solve it.
Right, yeah. We see ourselves as kind of the spearhead. We're opening up the space, and once it's opened up, then people who are experts can come in and actually put in the solutions.
That's awesome. Thank you. Well, just to finish up, was there anything else you wanted to mention?
Every single person in the United States has an obligation to do something about climate change, and if you want to have an impact, the biggest thing you can do is participate in civil disobedience. It can have an exponential effect, whereas lifestyle changes have a linear effect. So if you feel like you want to do something, look up extinctionrebellion.us and find a local chapter and get involved, and you can make a difference.
Thank you so much for your time, bro. I really appreciate it. Hey, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode. I wanted to pose the question back to you. What did you think about the questions I was able to ask? Let me know down in the comments. If this is your first time here, guys, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay barely informed.